The international break is over. You wait 16 days to watch Manchester United play football again. And then within 5 minutes of their first game back, they see themselves have a corner. They don't capitalize on it. They lose the ball. And one of their former players that they sold for probably not enough money at the time runs the length of the pitch and scores against them, triggering a whole debate of United should never have sold Anthony Elanga, should they? Just that. It's that kind of season. It is that kind of season. We're used to it by now. I'm sure it doesn't make it any easier. It's still frustrating. But I think United losing to Nottingham Forest is Nottingham Forest having a fantastic season. And fair play to them. They played the game that they wanted to play. They scored early enough to allow them to play the game that they wanted to play. And United have... Look, that's not the worst performance I've ever seen them put in. I've seen wins which have been worse than that. But like I say, it's just one of those seasons. The narrative, I love that word, the narrative, it just really seems to pile up on... The only thing that I'm surprised at this season, I said this recently, is that the halftime record where United have been winning at halftime and they've not lost a game in years and years and years in the league. That was... if that doesn't fall this season, I'll be absolutely flabbergasted. I've got to be honest. It seems like everything else is running against them at the moment. Every possible thing that you could say to put Manchester United down seems to be unfolding in front of our eyes. And the latest one is Anthony Elanga sold for 15 million to Nottingham Forest, scoring the only goal in a 1-0 win. Look, I don't think the performance was as bad as others that I've seen over the past couple of years or over the course of this season. But the weaknesses are obvious, and I'll be talking about those on this episode of the Promised Land podcast with me, Scott Saunders. Please subscribe on Spotify and Apple, YouTube as well. Please subscribe on all those platforms. Leave a 5-star review on the audio platforms. Leave a comment if you'd like to do so as well. And get in touch in the comments on YouTube and subscribe. I've already said that. And, do everything. Please follow me on social media as well at _Scott Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok. But yeah, I'll be talking about the Forest game today. I'll be talking about Alejandro Garnacho and the Anthony Elanga stuff, obviously, as well. Quick overview of the game in itself. I actually didn't catch the game live, but I had the pleasure of recording it and watching it back this morning, even knowing what the result was. And I think I've come to the same conclusion as most. But I've been saying this for a long time. United are just trying to do the best that they can do at the moment with a team that isn't really fit to play the way that Ruben Amorim wants. I think the fact that you're seeing Anthony Elanga, who is incredibly quick and has developed his own game at Forest, he's having a great season. Fair play to him. The fact that they didn't have the wherewithal to take him down when he was in their own half or anywhere on the pitch and just take that yellow card, it points to a little bit of naivety, I think, and maybe a physicality deficiency that they have in comparison to other teams in the Premier League. That's an obvious weakness. And United then spent most of the rest of the game really trying to press for an equaliser, having a lot of possession, creating chances as well, but nothing really clear-cut enough to get them back in it until Harry Maguire was subbed on as a makeshift striker for injury time. He, ironically, had the best 2 chances of the game and probably should have equalised or even won the game if he'd taken both of his chances. But there's obvious weaknesses in this team, and we just have to sit and wait and bear with it. The good thing is that I'm trying to dress this up as a good thing. The Premier League is gone. United can't even get Europe. This wasn't a particularly damaging defeat in those aspirations. We all know that the Europa League is where the focus is at the moment. And if United can go and pull a miracle out in the Europa League and win it, they get Champions League football and a lot more money to end up reinvesting in their squad, which needs investment, obviously. But it doesn't make it any easier, does it? I think there's some positive in the sense of, we're keeping the ball well in their own areas, in their own half, and working the ball out to the space and progressing with the ball up the pitch. But it's just that final third area, which is the biggest of concerns. But yeah, you think 2 weeks off or whatever, don't go and concede from your own corner within 6 minutes. It's incredibly frustrating. But I think that the big thing really, outside of making sure you defend that situation, is the lack of quality up front. And it really hit home to me on this night. Again, as if it hadn't done so already, that United do need proven quality up front. And I think proven is the word that I'd really like to use, because United are looking at using at the moment. Ahmad's obviously out injured and has shown probably the most aptitude or cutting edge out of any of the players that United have that are still at the club, obviously. He's 22 years old, 23 years old. Alejandro Garnacho's 21, 20 or something like that. Xerxes himself is 22, 23, 24 and relatively inexperienced at this level. And the players that are playing in those positions at the moment don't really have that. Ruben Amorim's talking a lot about being able to deal with the pressure of playing for Manchester United. And as much as I'm on board with, and I think that the right approach is to sign players of that kind of age to develop in the first team and to elevate their value, sign them for smaller fees. Obviously, Liam Delap has been talked about over the past couple of weeks as the striking option that they're going to go for, 40 million quid if Ipswich get relegated. I think there's a time and a place for that, but I think United have to be very careful to not go overboard with that profile of player. Getting in, I think the big thing that stuck out for me, and I'll do another section on it, was the lack of maturity. I think that Garnacho displayed, and I don't want to pick on him specifically, but he's the one getting a lot of headlines, and the comparison between Garnacho and Anthony Elanga is the obvious one that's being taken out of that. So I'll spend a bit of time sharing my thoughts on those two players. But United, they signed Patrick Dorgu in January, obviously, and he's a work in progress. Didn't have a great game himself last night. He was making some poor passes, giving the ball away when he shouldn't be. It's just the case of, it just seems to happen to every player that Manchester United have. I think what is really lacking in this team, though, in the forward areas, is not only consistency, but calmness, composure, a good first touch as well. Being able to receive the ball when under pressure from like massive centre-backs like Nikola Milenkovic. Being able to take the ball to feet, whether you're facing your own goal or running onto the ball. Having that ability and close control to maintain attacks, especially in the final third, is really important, where space is kind of limited and you're looking for the right pass in the right moment, or to work a yard or a bit of space to take a shot. You can find players who are young like that, but I think Ruben Amorim, like I say, has been talking a lot about the pressure of playing for Manchester United. I think it's evident. It seems like at times Garnacho specifically is carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, trying to do everything himself. And I've seen he's got a bit of flack for that. And it is frustrating to watch, but he seems to consistently make the wrong decision. Like I said, I don't want to pick on him too much, but there are the qualities that you need in this system. When you get into those areas, you need more composure. And I feel like signing young players to put the ball in the net is, especially when there's so many around you in those areas in the current existing United team, adding to that, I'm not sure is the best choice. So maybe I'll do another show specifically on Liam Delap. But for me, as much as he ticks certain boxes in terms of what Amorim wants for his system, I think there's mental qualities in terms of that come with experience that are really required from United and their transfer targets as well. I've seen people talking about Mateus Cunha over the last few days, who maybe is a better fit for one of the 210 positions, could be sold by Wolves. If it goes up to 60 million, I don't think United are going to get anywhere near that. There's a 62 million release clause. He's one of those players that really has that good close control, good first touch, and is able to add the kind of qualities that I've been talking about in those kind of areas. And Victor Osimhen is the other one as well, who maybe isn't exactly that, but he does have that knack to score a goal when his team needs it. He has the right instincts, this kind of thing, has experience at Champions League level. And there's been a rumor of Alejandro Garnacho and Victor Osimhen swapping over the past few days. And I've seen that poo-pooed in some areas, but if they are two separate deals, and United can still cash in on Garnacho and can bank that money, it's different, because obviously you pay amortize for any transfer fee on any players that you do sign over the course of the contract. So in Victor Osimhen's case, if they're sold for the same amount of money, 50 million each way or something like that, I'm taking numbers out of the air here, but you bank that entire 50 million from selling a player that's come through your youth academy, and you're paying 10 million a year on the books for any new signings that do come in, like Victor Osimhen. So maybe that's not the conversation to have for today, but I think the general point I'm trying to make here is that first touches, really strong first touches, are imperative. Maturity, remaining calm in those situations and not feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders, and doing the right things. And I will transition into talking about Garnacho here. I know people are quite split on this, and some people want to keep him because of what he represents. He's come through the United Academy, obviously. But I think this has been something that I've been saying for a while, and this only confirmed it to me again on the night. He doesn't look like a natural fit for any of the positions in this team. It just doesn't seem like the right fit. And as much as he's trying, I don't think you can fault the effort that he's putting in. I think some of the decisions that he makes are not the right ones, and maybe that comes with experience. I have no doubt that Garnacho will be a hell of a lot better a player in 5 years' time, wherever he's playing. And chances are, if United do end up selling him, he'll end up having a performance against United at some point where he beats them, because of the qualities that he has, like Anthony Elanga did last night. But I think Garnacho has a lot to learn. And as much as he's trying, it just seems like it's not. Will it ever be the natural fit? I don't really know. I think the jury's out. And I spoke consistently on this podcast about there being a sale that was potentially unpopular. And I've always had that feeling that it might be Garnacho. And I think the performance on this night again just seemed to tell me that maybe this is going to be the one, because we know there's interest in him already. I think Chelsea have been linked again today. Napoli obviously wanted him in the winter transfer window. Maybe there's a remaining desire for them to take him there. And I think he'd do fantastic there. But it's just the two positions that you have, the number 10 positions that you have in this team, don't benefit what Garnacho brings. I think it's been said before, he has a memory like a fish, right? So he's ready to, no matter if he continually loses the ball, he will pick it back up and he will drive at defenders. It doesn't really matter. He will keep going, and that's an admirable quality. But I think what you're asking for in the 2-10 positions is better technical control, better close control, making the right decisions whether that's passing. I'll talk a little bit about the left side versus the right side in a second as well. Bringing other players into the game, not wasting opportunities, and it just doesn't seem like the right and natural fit. And I do have questions over whether it will ever be the right fit. I've got to be honest. I joked. I did some Twitter commentary as I was watching it through this morning, and I said, especially in the first half where he picks up the ball, it just seems like he's holding down the sprint button on FIFA as he receives it. So, if you've ever played it, I'm sure you have. Maybe if you're a little bit older, maybe you haven't. But holding down the sprint button, it just generally means that your first touch, the ball gets away from you a little bit more, and you're easier to tackle. And he did lose the ball a fair bit. And does he have, I'll compare him to, say, Matheus Cunha for a second. They're very, very different types of players. Or I'll compare him to Ahmad for a second. The way that they can monopolize the ball is different to what Garnacho offers. And I feel like the Ahmads and Matheus Cunhas are maybe better fits for the number 10 than Garnacho, who is more of a, look, in Erik ten Hag's team, where he would have more space, he would be able to receive the ball in space and make direct runs, because Erik ten Hag's team played with wingers. and he wanted to play with a striker which dropped in as the number 9 rather than held the ball up front. He also would have the dynamic on the left side with Patrick Dorgu is Dorgu's meant to be the one that offers the width. Garnacho, when he's playing on that left side, tends to come out to the left touchline, and then obviously the Dorgu option then means he has to go inside, and that's maybe not what you want from the system that he's playing in. The fact that United have made it open in their media briefings or whatever it is, Jim Ratcliffe came out and said we don't necessarily need to sell youth products that we do have, because that's not the way that we want to do things. We've made a bunch of different cuts to ensure that we don't need to do that. That's one problem. But I think what United need to do is to look at the squad that they have and look at the qualities of the players that they have, and then make decisions on whether they're the right fits for the system that Amorim wants. And I feel like Garnacho is really sticking out at the moment, like one of those players that could end up being sold for the right offer. So, like I say, this not only confirmed to me further that he could go in the summer for the right offer. It might not be the most popular thing to say, or maybe it's the most popular thing to say if you're particularly in that camp where he should be sold. United are going to need to take a tough decision on at least one of these players, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, like I say, it just confirmed to me that this could be something that really, really happens. It's something you need to prepare for, is all I'm going to say. As much as I don't necessarily want it to happen, I still feel there's a really, really good player in there. But like Ruben Amorim was saying, he needs time, and not every player is going to have time. Not everybody's going to have time at United. And I'll talk about Anthony Elanga in a minute. But just on the right side, I think left side versus right side. Garnacho started on the right side, and yeah, he lost the ball a lot. He was carrying it, but I think the habits that he has on that right side are a lot more of a better fit for the system than on the left side, because we know what he wants to do on the left side, and it kind of gets in Dorgu's way. He doesn't use the overlap all that often, ignores him, tries to do things on his own, and tries to get the glory. Whereas I think you limit his game a little bit more on the right side of that attack, to the point where he's a little bit more unpredictable. Whereas on the left side, he is carrying the ball and doing the same thing over and over again. Look, I think for the remainder of the season, I think Garnacho's best role is on that right side of the attack. Mason Mount's now back in the picture as well, so we'll see what happens with him and where he plays. But I spent a lot of time here talking about Garnacho, and I really want to make it clear that I'm not advocating for him to be sold. I'm not saying that I want him to be sold, but I am saying that the fit doesn't look right, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if United are thinking internally that this is an opportunity where we could raise some money to reinvest in a player who is a good fit for this team. So I think I want to use this opportunity just to say again that if it comes to the summer and United have that offer, do not be surprised if they take it up. Anyway, I'll talk about Anthony Elanga in a minute, because obviously the debate is, I should never have sold him. And I'll offer my thoughts in a second. Now, United sold Anthony Elanga on, might as well actually my birthday. I'm just looking at this, July 25th, 2023. A couple of years ago now, or just over 18 months ago, to Nottingham Forest for 15 million quid. And obviously, like I say, it had to happen at some point, didn't it? Anthony Elanga had to score a goal against Manchester United and decide the game, because that is just the existence that we have at the moment. All the success that United had over the previous years. This is the banter era, and every opportunity that United will get to experience banter at their own expense, it just seems to happen. It seems to unfold in front of us. And I don't know what we did to deserve this. Almost every game that we watch, it just feels like there's something every single time. And this is something that hadn't happened before. But obviously, it was only a matter of time till it did. Look, congratulations to Anthony Elanga. I'm really, really happy for him. But this meltdown, and this is, this podcast always seems to be this, but the meltdown around Oh, well, Anthony Elanga. Look, I saw Ruben Amorim getting questions of, do you think Anthony Elanga should have been sold by United 2 years ago, way before you even arrived at the club, over a year after you arrived at the club? Should they have sold him? And he must be tearing his hair out, the guy. Honestly, like this is nothing that he can do about this. But obviously, you need to get a story out of this, and obviously, this is the easy narrative to tell from this game. Hell, even I'm talking about it, obviously. So that's just the way it is. But I think the way I felt about Anthony Elanga at the time was maybe 15 million wasn't enough money for him, but I do not have any doubt even now that selling him was the wrong decision. Does that make sense? I'll say it again. It was the right decision to sell him at the time. And I feel like revisionism in this game is so massive. The conversation changes every 5 minutes, and the problem that United have and that United had was they made a decision to sell Anthony Elanga for 15 million quid, and they spent 80 odd million quid on Anthony, who's now out on loan at Real Betis. That is the problem. And United are making effort now. And we haven't really seen it unfold yet because United's transfer team haven't been in place properly until probably this summer, really is the first proper summer that we'll get under the new recruitment team, because people weren't in place last summer. January, United's hands were tied, but I think we got a little inkling into what they want or what they want to do. This summer coming now is going to be the line in the sand and the real difference maker in terms of what United do. The decision to sign Anthony, who's doing really well at Betis, by the way, I spoke about him recently. Fair play to him again. But just because Elanga has come back and ended up scoring against United because he's developed in a team which plays entirely different football to what is expected at Manchester United, it doesn't mean that it was the wrong decision to sell him. Maybe you can look at it and say United should have got more money for him. You can definitely look at it and say they shouldn't have signed Anthony in his place to for 85 million quid or whatever. That you can talk about. The expense in order to replace players like that. I can't remember the exact time differences, but it goes without saying that Anthony didn't work out. But Ruben Amorim was asked about this, and obviously the conversation has been, should they have sold him? He then said in his post-match press conference, we're talking about a lot of front players that come from Manchester United and they are doing right, but they had their chance here. At Manchester United, you don't have the time. I'm saying all the time, I will not have the time. We have to get it right and fast. But you are not talking about players that didn't play for Manchester United. They were here playing for Manchester United. In here, the pressure is too big sometimes, and sometimes you don't have time. You should have time for these kids to develop, but for that, you need a strong base to support all these kids. If you don't have that strong base, we are not going to help our kids. So they had their chances, and sometimes football is like that, and the pressure of playing for Manchester United is really big. He's right, though. And look, as much as I do, you can maybe point fingers at Amorim for, and I'm not really one of these people, but there are people out there that do point their finger at Amorim saying he should be getting more out of this team. Maybe he should, but the way that they're doing things is the system comes first. The team comes first. This isn't a team that's going to be individual based anymore. They need to find the right mixes for their team and get playing as greater than the sum of their parts rather than lesser than. Forest are a team who, as an example, are greater than the sum of their parts. Obviously, they've recruited really well over the past few years, and they're third in the Premier League. They're really showing that they're together. They have an idea. They have a style that they play, and it works for them. Fair play. But I'm not saying that Anthony Elanga hasn't improved. I think he always has had that ability to carry the ball, which is really important, especially in this version of the Premier League. United probably need more players like that, but I've just spent some time there talking about more technically able players in terms of small spaces and carrying the ball through neat little intricate 1-2s and little dribbles to get past players. That United's problem last night was exactly that. It wasn't, can you carry the ball 85 yards and score? Because that's the way Forest were playing. That would never have happened because they were so obviously back. Ruben would talk about them defending as a line of six or whatever. Forest got into the position on that night where they could afford to do that. Their priority was keep a clean sheet because they scored so early. Are we saying that United shouldn't have sold Anthony Elanga? And if you put Anthony Elanga on the United team last night, would the same thing have happened? Would Anthony Elanga have improved United's situation on that night? Given how the game was unfolding, given how Forest were defending? I don't think so at all. At all. And I'm not trying to put Elanga down here. I'm just saying that the type of forward that United are needing to have in those 10 positions or at striker, Anthony Elanga still now isn't a good fit for, in my opinion. Maybe people disagree with that, but it's obviously the right decision for me. It's just that the way that narratives unfold, it's just the easy one that's going to hit you in the face, isn't it? But United look after a different quality of player, and the only thing that the things that you can really look at here is they probably should have got more money for him in the first place, but 15 million at the time was a bargain for Forest. It was a good deal for United, given he was a fringe player. He went a long time without scoring for United as well. But like Ruben Amorim says, they didn't really have the right atmosphere at that point to get the best out of a player like that. But I think the quality and the skill set that Elanga has, even now, isn't the right fit for the team that Man United have and the way that Man United want to play. For me, Elanga has found a really, really good fit in Nottingham Forest. And so has Callum Hudson-Odoi, different players like that. Because of the style that Forest play, there's not an expectation on Nottingham Forest to dominate matches. They're third in the league and they're giddy. They're in FA Cup semi-finals, which is amazing. It's fantastic for Forest. But are you telling me that you want Nuno Espirito Santo playing the football that Nottingham Forest play at Manchester United? No, of course you're not. There's different levels of pressure, different levels of expectation, different levels of expectation of delivery, and Amorim has said that in what he said about Anthony Elanga as well. There's just a habit, really, of running on the narrative that is unfolding in front of you and not taking a step back and thinking logically that it was still the right decision to sell Anthony Elanga. It was fair play to him. Not every player is going to make it at Manchester United. Plenty of players haven't, and plenty of players better than Anthony Elanga haven't done it either. The problem that United have is the problems that United have is that they have never really fostered that environment where they get the best out of the players that they have. They're still working that out. They need to create that over the next few months and years to make sure that players that they have fulfill their potential. And there will be more players like Anthony Elanga in the future that are probably deemed not good enough for the Man United first team that go to other clubs and have a great time. And that's okay. That is absolutely fine. United really need to find the right fits for what they want to do and let players go to get the best out of their careers at other clubs. And I've spent some time talking about Garnacho. I'll even say this. If Garnacho ends up getting sold and goes somewhere else, I have no doubt really that he will find a team that suits the qualities that he has, that plays in the right way that he wants to play, and he'll probably have a great time. Probably will even come back and score against United at some point. And then the same conversation that we're having now about Elanga, we'll probably be having about Garnacho as well. Maybe Garnacho stays. I've been speaking quite a bit in this podcast like Garnacho's going to go. I don't know this for sure, obviously, but I think this is just the conclusion that I've drawn from it. But United themselves, they need to get their own house in order, and some players will just have to go. Anthony Elanga was one of them. And they need to get to a point where the team is operating in its right form, so we're seeing the best of what Ruben Amorim wants. Was Elanga the right fit? I don't think so. Is Garnacho the right fit? I'm not sure. I have my reservations, and I wouldn't be surprised, like I say, to see him leave the club in the summer as well. But look, the United have a lot to do. We knew this already. Yeah, I think they're still 13th in the league. Everton have got Liverpool away. Tottenham have got Chelsea away in this round of games. Maybe United will stay 13th here. And just look ahead to the Man City game. City aren't at it themselves. The way City play will be completely different to the way that United play, the way that Forest play. So we'll see. If United can go and beat City in the league on Sunday, fantastic. Great. But this game at Forest was a difficult one. I think they got Newcastle away after that in the league as well. That's going to be tough. But this league campaign, the remainder of it was always going to be a slog. The important thing really is that United try and get their way through the Europa League campaign, which is coming up in just over a week's time. It resumes in just over a week's time against Lyon. That's the most important thing. That's where the priority lies. And if United don't end up winning that, then they'll have to really, really think about the incomings and the outgoings and really save their pennies and make the right decisions. And it could mean some unpopular decisions come in terms of players that are sold, even more so. But look, it's not really a day to be too down on things. It would have been ideal, really, if United came back from that break and got a better result than they did, but that's just the way that it is. And we will have to prepare for that. We'll have to live with that for the remainder of the season. Let's just pin hopes on United being able to deliver something in the Europa League, like I say. But subscribe to the podcast if you've not done so already. On Spotify and Apple, on YouTube as well. The Promise and the Manchester United podcast. Leave a comment on any of those platforms. Give a 5-star review on audio and leave or follow me on social media at @_ Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Until next time, everyone, this has been the Promised Land. See you soon for another Manchester United podcast. I've been Scott Saunders. Have a great day.